Hi and welcome to this onmaths topic buster to factorise and solve advanced quadratics. There's no need to be erratic with a quadratic. Enjoy! Hi and welcome to this onmaths topic buster. So today we're looking at advanced quadratics. Now we are going to be looking briefly at when the coefficient of the x squared, the number before it is 1. You'll know that more as just x squared, so it'll be x squared plus 5x plus 6, and we'll factorise that. But the main focus of this video is when the coefficient, the number before the x squared, is not 1. Now the easier ones are when it's a prime number, well, for some people easier. And the harder ones are when it's like 12x, so it could be x and 12x, or 6x and 2x, or 3x and 4x, okay? And there's a really simple method for this. It's one that has lots of different steps, but each step is very simple, and you just need to learn the steps and you will get the right answer all the time. So it's a big one today, so let's get started. Okay, so for these questions we're asked to factorise the quadratics. Now when we factorise, we know we're going to have a double set of brackets. So I put those in straight away, and we know it's a quadratic because there's an x squared, an x and a number. And that's not always the case, but the exception is down the bottom of the page, so we'll get to that. Okay, because it says x squared, we know that the first bit in the brackets is going to be x. So we can do all that without really thinking much. Now, the way of doing this question is have a look at the last number, this number here, and what we're going to have is two numbers that multiply together to make that number. The numbers also have to add together to make this number, the number before the x. So they've got to add to make 5. So I'm going to write the factors of 6, so 1 times 6, and I'm going to add those together, and that's going to be 7, so that's not going to work. And I've said 1 times 6 equals 7, but obviously I'm adding them in this column. Okay, and I'll put an arrow there just in case. Right, so 2 times 3, well those are going to add together to make 5. Okay, so it's 2 and 3. So we put plus 2 and plus 3, and that's it. Now the important thing to remember here is that we're not just finding two numbers that multiply together to make 6. Actually finding what they multiply together to make 1 times 6. Now 1 times 6 is 6, so we don't have to worry about the coefficient of the x squared, the number before the x squared. But in today's lesson we are going to be worried about a number before the x squared. So it just happens to be 1 in this, so we just kind of ignore the 1. Same with the next one. So I'm going to put my double set of brackets down, nice and easy. It's x squared, so it's going to be x in both brackets. And so this time we're looking for two numbers that multiply together to make negative 8. And they've got to add together to make positive 2. Okay, so let's have a look. Now 1 times 8, and what I do is I just imagine one of them's negative. So if I add together negative 1 and 8, that's positive 7. If I add together negative 8 and a positive 1, then that would be minus 7. So neither of those. So it will be, I'll put a cross there. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna get to that 2. So I'm gonna try again. 2 times 4. Okay, so let's have a think. If we have a positive 4 and a negative 2. So let's try negative 2. 4 plus minus 2 is positive 2. So we know that that's correct. So our two numbers are going to be a minus 2 and a positive 4. And it doesn't matter which way around we do them. Again, it's not two numbers that multiply together to make negative 8. It's multiplied together to make 1 times negative 8, which again is just negative 8. Okay, last one is the difference of two squared. You either know it or you don't. This second number here will always be a square number. It's a bit of a dead giveaway. So the way of doing this is just add the square root of that second number and minus the square root of that second number. If you expand that, you get x squared plus 8x minus 8x, and then minus 64. Minus 8 times 8 is minus 64. These two cancel each other out, and we're just left with x squared minus 64. Okay, pause the video, have a go. Okay, so for this first one, we're trying to get the 8 here. So we're trying to find two numbers and multiply together to make 8. And they've got to add together to make 6. They've got to add together to make 6. Okay, so factors of 8. 1 times 8, they'll add together to make 9. That's not right. We don't want that. 2 times 4, they'll add together to make 6. And that's perfect. That's what we want. So the bracket's going to be x plus 2, x plus 4. Brilliant. Okay, next one. So we've got times together to make negative 12. And we've got to add together to make, well, what number is there? Well, technically it's a minus 1. We just don't show the 1. So we've got to add together to make minus 1. Okay, so 1 times 12, with one of them being negative. So minus 12 and positive 1 would be minus 11. And positive 12 and negative 1 would be just 11, so that's not going to work. 2 times 6, let's try that. Negative 6 would make minus 4. Positive 6 and negative 2 would be 4. And 3 times 4, let's try that. So there's a negative, if we make it a negative 4 and a positive 3, then that would add together to make negative 1, which is what we want. So the brackets are going to be x plus 3, x minus 4. Let's just check that works. Yeah, it does. Works perfectly. Excellent. Okay, let's get my equal signs in there as well. And this one's just difference of 2 squared, so it's going to be x plus the square root of 144, which is 12, and x minus square root of 144, which is minus 12 as well. Excellent. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so you can see now the difference between the ones that we want to tackle today. There's a number before the x squared now. So we do it the same method as we did before initially, and then we've got to do something slightly different later on. So let's start the same method. Now, I told you on the previous one that we need to times these together. Now, before, that was always 1 times and then whatever was on the right hand side. This time there's a 2 there. So we've got to do the 2 times the 3 first and get that number. That's 6. So our target number for the two numbers, they need to times together to make 6 and not 3 anymore. Okay, so you grab the number before the x squared and the number on its own at the end, you multiply them together, and that's your target product. Now the method as well just picks this number, okay, so the plus 5 there, and that's going to be the target sum. Okay, now I start writing my list. So 1 times 6 is 6, but they add together to make 7, so not that one. And 2 times 3 is 6, and they add together to make 5, so that's the right one. Okay, now this is where the method gets a little bit more complicated, but if we've done the first 2 steps, this is quite an easy step. So you just need to write the question again, so 2x squared, but instead of writing the 5x there, I'm going to split it up into the 2x and the 3x. So I'm going to say plus 2x plus 3x. And then I'm just going to copy in the plus 3 from the question. So all I've done is I've split that plus 5 into a plus 5x into a 2x plus 3x. It means the same thing. But by doing this, I can split the question up into 2. I can just focus on this bit and do that bit first, and then just focus on this bit. And what we want to do is we want to factorise just that first green box. So I'm looking at the 2x squared and the plus 2x, and I'm thinking, what can I divide out of both of those? Obviously there's a 2 I can divide out of both of those, and there's also an x, so I'm going to divide out 2x. When I do that, 2x squared divided by 2x is just x, and 2x divided by 2x is just 1. I'm going to do the same with the second green box. I'm going to look at the numbers. There's a 3 I can divide out of both of those, so a positive 3. And then I'm going to divide them out of both of them. So it's x, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. Now you might notice that the two brackets here are exactly the same, and that needs to happen. They have to be the same, and they always will be if you followed the steps correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to construct a bracket out of this one and this one. So I'm going to construct a bracket saying 2x plus 3. And then the second bracket's just going to be the repeated bracket, so the x plus 1. Now when you look at that, that is your answer there, and that's full marks. It looks really complicated, but try and break it down step by step and do each step just one at a time. The second one's a lot more complicated because the numbers are bigger, but the steps are the same. So the first thing to do is times these two together. So 6 times 12 is 72. Now that's going to make it much more difficult, but not impossible. We know the two numbers are going to add together to make 17. Okay, so I could start with 1 times 72, but equally at the start I kind of know that the numbers have to have a kind of difference of, or the addition, sorry, a sum of 17. So I'm thinking 1 and 72 is going to be 73. So I could try 2 and is it 36? And again, that's way too large. So I need to try and figure out a way of getting there closer. Now I know that 8 times 9 is going to give quite a low sum, and I could go through all the numbers, but I know that the difference, the sum between 2 and 36 is so large that I want to skip a few and see whether I can save some time. 8 plus 9 is 17, so that is going to give me 17. The other ones were way too large. So I do the next step. I write down the question again, so 12x squared. But instead of writing plus 17x, I now write plus 8x plus 9x. And it doesn't matter which order you put them in. And then plus 6 at the end. And then I'm just looking at this box here and this box here. Okay, let's look at the first one. So we want to factorise this. Now 12 and 8 are both in the 4 times table, and they both have an x. So that's going to give us 3x here and 2 here. 9x and 6, well, they both have 3 in them that I can factorise out. So that's going to be 3x plus 2, which is perfect because we've got the repeated bracket. So I'm going to grab the 4x and the plus 3. I'm going to form my first bracket, which is going to be 4x plus 3. And then I'm going to show the repeated bracket. Okay, the last one is just a much simpler one. All we need to do different here to the green one in the last question is instead of, so it's going to be plus 5 and minus 5 to get that minus 25. This time it's just going to be 2x plus 5 and 2x minus 5. So not only are we square rooting this number here, we're also square rooting this number here. And if you expand 2x plus 5, 2x minus 5, you will get 4x squared minus 25. Okay, have a go. Okay, so to do this question, we want to times these two together first. So 3 times 2, which is 6. And that's going to be our target product. And then we're going to grab this number here, and that's going to be our target sum. So we need two numbers that times together to make 6 and add together to make 5. So 1 times 6 adds together to make 7. 2 times 3 adds together to make 5. So we know that that's the right one. And I just copy the question again. So 3x squared. And instead of plus 5x, I'm going to say plus 2x plus 3x. And then plus 2. Okay, then I'm going to split that up into 2. And I'm going to factorise the first box, so it looks like it's just x that comes out of both of those, and it's going to be 3x plus 2. Now if you put them in the other way round, then you'll get a slightly different brackets. So you could have put 3x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 2, and you'll find that your working out is completely different, but your answer is the same. Okay, the next one, I can't really factorise out anything from that second bracket, or the second green box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide out 1. Okay, if you can't find anything to divide out, pick 1. So we're going to have 3x plus 2. Now it looks like there's no point in that bracket, but because the next step is about putting them together, and I'm going to be looking at this bit here and this bit here, I'm going to put them together and make a bracket. So x plus 1, and then the repeated bracket goes second, so 3x plus 2, and that's the answer. Now you might have got 3x brackets x plus 1 plus 2 brackets x plus 1, and you notice it's exactly the same answer. Okay, let's move on to the second one. So we're going to times these together first, so 6 times 6, which is 36. Okay, so 36 is our target product, and the 13 here is our target sum. Okay, so numbers that times together to make 36 and add together to make 13. So they would be quite small numbers. Let's have a think. Well, that we can try 2 and 18, that wouldn't work. What is it, 3 and 12? 3 times 12, that's getting close. 4 times 9? 4 times 9, there we go, that adds together to make 13. Okay, so I'm going to write the question again. So 6x squared, and this time I'm going to split that 13 up into plus 4x plus 9x, and then plus 6. So let's add my green boxes here. So I'm looking at this one first, and then I'm looking at factorising this one. So what am I going to factorise out? Well, they both have 2x that I can divide out. So that's going to be 3x plus 2. And the second green bracket, they both have 3. So plus 3 brackets, 3x plus 2. And I'm looking at that first bit first, this bit here, and making a bracket out of that. So 2x plus 3. And then the repeated bracket afterwards. And it doesn't matter which order you put the brackets in, obviously. And that's our answer. Okay, this last one, I'm looking at the square root of these two and just doing the difference of two squares. So that's going to be 3x plus, what is it, 14? And then 3x minus 14. Brilliant. Okay, have a go at these questions. Okay, so on these questions we've added sort of 2 layers of complexity. We've got negatives involved, which we didn't on the previous examples, and we also asked to solve. So on question 1 it will just be factorised because there's no equal sign, so we can't solve it. So let's focus on that. So going through the steps again, it's exactly the same steps when it's negative. You times them together. This time it gives us, so it's 6, I should write it down, 6 times negative 2, which is minus 12. So we're looking for it to be negative 12. And we're looking for, well, there's a minus 1 before here. So they've got to sum together to make minus 1. So looking at the numbers, well, I could try 1 and 12, but I'm never going to get that minus 1. So let's have a think. I think 3 and 4, because there's a difference of 1 between them. And let's have a think. If I'm going to get a minus 1, it's going to have to be a minus 4, and then add 3, which is minus 1. So the numbers are 3 and minus 4, and you'll find the more you do of this, the more you can get the answer a little bit quicker than writing down all the factors of the negative 12. Okay, so I'm going to do the same step as before. So I'm going to write 6x squared, and I'm going to write plus 3x minus 4x minus 2. Okay, so I'm going to put green boxes around them. Just like before, same steps. and the first bracket has 3x. I can divide out both of them, so that's going to be 2x plus 1. Now the rule is that if there's a negative on the third term, so that minus 4x, the negative needs to be brought out the bracket. So it's going to be a minus, and 4 and 2 would be 2. Now when I do that, it makes that first term positive, because that minus 4x, I'm bringing or dividing out the negative, so it's going to be positive 2x. And that negative 2 there, I'm dividing by negative 2. So it's going to end up as a plus 1. That confuses some students. If you just try and expand that out, minus 2 times 2x is minus 4x. Minus 2 times positive 1 is minus 2. So it works perfectly. So just be careful of that, because that confuses students every year. Okay, so I'm going to look at that 3x and the minus 2. I'm going to form a bracket with that. So bracket 3x minus 2. And then the repeated bracket comes next, so 2x plus 1, and that's it factorised. Now, the second question, it's not a coincidence, it's the same question but equaling 0, because it saves us doing the factorising again. So I can factorise this straight away, because I've done that on the previous question. So I'm just going to write it out again. But this time it equals 0, it's an equation. Now the way of doing this is get the left-hand bracket to equal 0. So I'm going to say 3x minus 2 equals 0. The way I do these is I just put a line down where the equals is, and I figure out what do I have to do to both sides to get x on its own. Well, I'm going to have to plus 2 to both sides, so that's 3x equals 2, and then I'm going to have to divide by 3 both sides. I'm going to write quite small here. So I can write that as a fraction, 2 over 3, and that's absolutely fine, or 0.6 recurring. Okay, I'm going to do the same with the right-hand bracket. So I'm going to write it out as an equation, but I'm going to get it equal to 0, and it's always getting equal to 0, because the only way we can get to 0 is if one of these brackets here, either this one or this one, equals 0. You can't get 0 any other way, apart from if you times by 0. Okay, so let's put my lines in. And this time I'm going to take away 1 from both sides, because it's a plus 1 on the right, on the left hand side, so that's going to be equals minus 1, and then divide by 2 both sides to get rid of that 2 on the x. So x equals minus a half. And those are our two answers, that x equals 2/3 and x equals minus a half. Okay, I'm going to do it all in one on the last question. So we know how to factorise this. So it's going to be 4x plus 3 and 4x minus 3 equals 0. And then I can solve both of these when they equal 0. So 4x plus 3 equals 0. I'm going to take away 3 both sides, and I'm running out of room here. So I'm going to have to not write that down for now. So 4x equals minus 3. And then x equals, I'm going to divide by 4, so it's minus 3/4. We'll do the same again, but this time 4x minus 3 equals 0. I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and then divide by 4. So it's x equals minus 3/4, and x equals just 3/4. And there's a different way of doing that. You could have added 9 to both sides, then divided the 16, and then square rooted it, and that would also work. Thank you very much for watching this Topic Busters. If you enjoyed this one and want to see more, please look at our YouTube account. Just type in onmaths on YouTube and we come up. Otherwise, go to the website onmaths.com and you can have a go at all of our predictions, Topic Busters, Demon Questions, mini mocks and countless other things. Thank you very much.